Yes, hello, folks. Welcome to the weekly Manchester United show. I'm yours, as always, Phil Brandt, with my regular co-host, the excellent James Rhodes, on this Monday morning here in Los Angeles, and it is biblical, pouring rain outside. I'm sure you're all heartbroken for me. Nonetheless, since the last time we recorded this, mate, we have had two wins. Two very entertaining wins, 7 goals in both those games. Lots of positives, as usual with United. It's not always a positive. There's a couple of things in there. The Martinez injury that is a big concern, and certain things happen in the Wolves game. We'll touch on that a little bit too, since we haven't done a podcast since then. That you are concerning, but lots and lots of positives. Mainoo being one of those, absolutely incredible, and of course Rasmus Hojlund, lots of other things. So first of all, mate, how was your weekend?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. We had some good weather, some good, I say, very snowy weather for a
Mm,
bit as well. But it's nice, there was good weekends with without United, and I was concerned when they came back, that getting back to that feeling,
mm,
of disappointment that
mm.
pervades the time around a United game. But it's been better. It's been better. So it hasn't ruined the weekend anymore, which is a nice thing to happen.
The last time we recorded this podcast, I'd said that I felt that if Ten Hag lost these games, I don't think he would survive. Um, he's won both those games. Um, and we'll have to be fair, there was a lot of positives. I think it goes without saying, James, that one of the things you can say with high degree of certainty is how much the injuries have affected Ten Hag United. They've looked a lot better since players came back. I think the 2 week break helped them. I think the fact that the first game back from that 2 week break was Newport away helped them, because it allowed United to get a little bit of match sharpness without being in games where they're not as 100% with match sharpness. They're still feeling their way into games, and they were able to win that game, score four. I felt that the goal against Newport was going to help Hoyland. They come into Wolves in a very similar game to Newport, and score four again. And I think, Casemiro has been really helpful to United. I think he's improved. Obviously, Lissandro Martinez, absolutely huge. That Wolves game, in some sense, reminded me a bit of the Sevilla game, in that United were coasting. Martinez comes off, and then defensively, the roof collapses. Same again against Wolves. Martinez come off, United concede two. I don't think there was anyone, when Kilman scored, didn't think Wolves were going to get the equaliser.
Yeah.
Again, I think Onana was poor in that game. I thought he was all right on Saturday, but lots of things that were still consistently concerning. But nonetheless, it's been a really, really positive week for United.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you have 3 wins in a row. You're scoring, what is it, 11 goals across the 3 games now. Yeah. You keep a clean sheet at home against West Ham, who are above United in the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's still a results business, and there's a lot of things that have not necessarily been working, that are still problematic or worrisome, but it's an improvement. It's a real improvement. It's an improvement that is desperately needed, and results that are desperately needed too, because regardless of everything, what happens rest of the season, what happens in the summer, it would be better if United were able to get into the Champions League, and we're coming off of this year not on a complete downslope. I mean, I think it's past time to think that it's going to be a good season no matter what happens, but it could be improved from the state of things the last month, and that would be, I mean, if we can squeeze our way into the Champions League again, I think it makes a
Yeah.
big difference. So, I'm not really expecting to see all the problems solved and the stylistic issues and things like that to be fixed this season. It's February. I mean, usually you're not seeing progression in February and March. You just grinding the results out by this point in the year. And to some degree, that's fine. If we can let the talent of the players that we have carry the team um, to win, enough games to get there, then I won't complain about that for the rest of the season. Would be okay with me.
I mean, I think this weekend, we'll get into that a little bit later, is huge for United. If they can
Yeah.
go to Villa and get a win, I think they'll get enormous momentum from that. I think it will convince the players that this is different from the many revivals they've had before, that there's momentum there, that I think this is going to be a key weekend for United, and there are players to convince themselves that they really are, moving forward in Champions League is realistic. But go back to the games, obviously, Mainoo deserves to be singled out. So a couple of things about this, James. First of all, I think Ten Hag deserves credit for actually keeping Mainoo on the pitch the entire game, because it would have been tempting to take him off, to keep him on the entire game. And once again, one of the most impressive things about him is his composure, maturity. And he picks that ball up. I don't know who it was he megged, but he nutmegs it was one of the Wolves players. Then lovely balance, cuts across the player, and instead of just lathering it, I mean, it's a brilliant video if you want to coach kids on how to finish. Pass the ball into the net. He just curls that ball around Jose Sa, puts the ball in the bottom corner, and maybe, without being dramatic, save Ten Hag's job, because I don't know if you need to go out and beat West Ham 3-0 if they throw that game away. I think it would have been demoralising for United. We've seen them do this so many times, but they were able to win that game, and they won it with what is, to me, one of the most exciting young players to come through the academy, probably since Mason Greenwood, I would say. Just a magnificent footballer that fills me with so much hope for the future. And look, I think that, there's obviously other areas that you can pick things apart. Defensively, United once again, porous, really poor. I thought Onana shouldn't have been beat on his near post. I thought his positioning wasn't great. Anthony giving the ball away twice for those goals, big concern still. But to focus on the positives, I mean, 3 of United's 4 goal scorers at Wolves were out of United's academy. I mean, this so rarely happens anymore at the highest level.
Yeah, it is a real positive, and it's exactly those players that you look at and think we could build for the future around them. We could see something special around them. They've got the temperament, they have the ability, they have the focus, and they have everything you'd want out of United. And so yeah, those were really the positives about it. You know, uh, that moment, is something where it is uplifting, and at the same time, you look at it and say, not to be pessimistic about it, but why is it taking an 18-year-old to be the one to grab the game by the throat and do that? But at the same time, there's a lot of players subbed off by that point in time. A lot of the first teamers, the players who started the game, and all of that. But either way, it's the type of thing you want to see, especially from a midfielder, from somebody who can control a game, who could take it over and do it in a way that I think many of us hoped, for years that Paul Pogba would do when he was here. Just take a game and do something with it. There's been comparisons to him. Obviously, they're totally different size, Mainoo and Paul Pogba, but in certain attributes that they have in their ability to manipulate the ball, manipulate the defense, the talent, and kind of the composure that they had. It's the type of thing you would hope, that was always hoped, that Paul Pogba could come in and be that person who can control a game, who can do these types of things and make these kinds of moments. And they were far too infrequent, but I think with Mainoo, there's something really special there. And it was kind of the Wolves game, aside from all the defensive errors, obviously as well, a lot of confidence for Rasmus Hojlund, Marcus Rashford, and Alejandro Garnacho playing together.
Yeah.
And scoring goals, and as a 3, making things happen. And that continued into West Ham.
Yeah, look, to me, there's 2 ways of looking at that. With the Mainoo thing, yeah, why is it taking an 18-year-old? Or you can say it's fantastic that an 18-year-old can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we see this, Barcelona with Pedri, Gavi, they have these exceptional young players that come in that can change games. I think for United, I think in many ways it's just a major compliment to Kobbie Mainoo that he had that composure to be able to do that, and probably one of the few players on the pitch that could actually do that. Obviously, some of the other positives, Rasmus Hojlund gets a goal from an early ball across the box. And, in some sense, one of the similarities was with that game with Newport is they don't kill the game. They have unbelievable opportunities, don't kill the game, keep Wolves alive, they come back into the game. This is an issue. But we've seen that Hojlund occupy that position so many times and the ball doesn't come. You could see that having Luke Shaw at left back is also a massive plus for Rasmus Hojlund, because he will get you those overlaps with Rashford, put the ball in early. That's going to help Hojlund. Rashford played like a guy that had a point to prove. I think that obviously what he did in Belfast was stupid. And when we were recording this podcast last week, I said that he should just come out and apologize and move on. And by the time we had published the podcast, United had let out a statement and said, accept responsibility. I think one of the things that was also very different about that was how United handled that. It was a very short, terse statement. There was no dragged out stuff. There was no, speculation from the week. An internal issue. It's done. Move on. Now, these are things that United should have been doing a long time ago. Some of the coverage was absurd. Some of the coverage that they give, I don't want to compare, it's just an illustration of the difference between United and City. Right about the same time, Kyle Walker's doing an interview about a deeply personal issue that, to me, is more character defining than what Marcus Rashford did. And it almost got lost, in the noise between Marcus Rashford making a stupid decision. By the way, James, a stupid decision that's been made by millions of footballers throughout the history of the sport. We just didn't get to hear about it. Football, human beings do stupid things. Sometimes Marcus came back, played like he had a point to prove. And when he plays like that, he's unplayable. I thought that even on Saturday, where you could see he was visibly frustrated with himself for some of the things that didn't go right. He played, I thought he played really well.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree for sure. And I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is that the crime of the matter is that United aren't winning. And that's really it. When we look at it, I said, we've talked about that, like you said, with a lot of footballers doing it. Paul Scholes, some people, dug up his thing doing an interview with Gary Neville talking about how he would basically has done the same thing many times, and that's just the product of the environment that he came from. That the drinking before every night before games doesn't matter, things like that. It happens, but they were winning, and so that's really the crime of it. Some of it, there's the City United bias. There's some of it is, a lot of people online and all of that will say, well, yeah, but Kyle Walker's winning a treble. He's a footballer. So that's all that really matters. They're performing, they're winning. And there's truth in that too.
But you're judging
I know. Right? Exactly. But that is the problem, right? You're talking about them as a person.
Yeah. Sorry, man. Yeah. If a player does this with a team bottom of the league, is he any more, culpable than someone who does at the top of the league? To me, it's like,
not as a person.
Because Marcus Rashford isn't entirely responsible for whether United win or not. That's a collective responsibility. But anyway, sorry.
No, but that's my point, is that is how I think it's taken to people. But, it goes to show, yes, off the pitch, things can affect how somebody's performing, but I think people tie the assumption, and there's a lot of confirmation bias that goes into it. When someone isn't performing, they think, oh, I see them doing this, that's why. But there's a lot of people who are performing who do the same thing. And so it's not really connected, but people want to connect it. Either way, I agree. I think he came out against Wolves with a point to prove and was exceptional, was incredibly aggressive. I think that it's very amusing to watch him, because you can see that some of the stuff about him not happy, not having fun, not wanting to play football anymore, not enjoying it, these types of things. There may be personal things that are going on in all of that, but I think he sort of almost was making a point about that in some of the moments in the game. smiling with the teammates, enjoying it with them, all of that. But those are all good things you want to see. And
Mhm.
I think he is having a lot of fun with it. And I thought it was a little bit funny too, the way the narrative had went, because come the Wolves game, that was his 5th game in a row with a goal contribution and his 3rd
Mhm.
game in a row scoring in the Premier League. And you would
Brilliant.
have thought by the way things were said that, he hadn't scored in 3 months or something like
Yeah.
that, and was totally out of form. And even though he didn't at West Ham, I thought it was a really good game from him again. And the combination of those players together works. It doesn't require one of them, all 3 of them, to be perfect at any point in time. Um, it's creating such a threat in defenses that they can all have a little bit more room, which is what you want, because it's very rare that you have all 3 of your forwards perfect every game and scoring and finishing all their chances and perfect passes and things like that. But the decisions are so much better, the interplay is better, and it's creating enough chances to get goals.
I mean, I think, James, when you consider what Eric Ten Hag should have had in his front three, he should have had Mason Greenwood, Jadon Sancho, and Marcus Rashford. 2 of those players he doesn't have due to their own issues that Ten Hag was never really allowed to replace. Um, had their personal lives been different or certain circumstances been different, I mean, those are huge players, would look completely different. And of course, given some of the challenges United have had getting a striker, I think that has had, I think it's underestimated the impact that has had on United, on the fact
Yeah.
that they are, this is, they don't have the resources anymore to replace those types of players. Obviously, Mason had already been suspended by the time Ten Hag came. So, but he was under the impression that Greenwood was going to be integrated
Mhm.
back into the squad over the summer. Of course, that didn't happen. Not easy to replace those young players. I think, the positive, like we said, is the fact that in this day and age where academies are essentially nothing more than FFP supplements, it's brilliant to see still top football clubs like Manchester United and other top clubs before, but mainly clubs like United, other clubs that are playing young players are buying these young players. They're not bringing them through the academy. It's great to see that there's still a pathway into the first team. I never want that to change at United. This season has been brutal at
Mm.
times. But if you want to pick out the positives, for me, a lot of the positives come from academy players. The Garnacho goal away at
Yeah.
Everton, just out of this
Yep.
world, right? Couple of McTominay late winners. The Of course, the emergence of Kobe Mainoo, which is that Wolves goal, mate. Honestly, I jumped up so fast, did the whirly perch. Yeah, I was like, don't straight out on the carpet, and 10 seconds later. But just incredible. So very, very positive. Some of the other positives, mate. We talk about Garnacho.
Yeah.
This kid scores 2 again at the weekend, right? And I don't want to praise Garnacho by criticizing another United player, but it's to me blatantly obvious that Garnacho on the right, Rashford on the left, Hojlund down the middle is United's best forward line, right? And Garnacho is more two-footed than Anthony, so it makes him a bit more unpredictable. He can
Mhm.
cut inside on his left. You saw him
Yep.
do it against Villa. You've seen him do it before. He can cut inside on his left. He'll score goals. And it's much harder for a left back to know what Garnacho is going to do. He can put the ball in early. He can score a variety of different goals. And you're starting to look at this kid now and you're going, maybe he gets the credit he deserves amongst United fans, but Garnacho really should be being talked about as one of the best 19-year-olds in the game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what you're saying is totally correct, because if you look at the scores in December for United, Newcastle 0. Against Chelsea, we scored 2, and that was like a really great game, right? That was like the best game all month. 0 against Bournemouth, 0 against Bayern, 0 against Liverpool, 0
Yeah.
against West Ham.
Mm-hmm.
Garnacho comes in on the right side with Rashford and Hojlund starting against Aston Villa. United come back from 2 down. 3 goals that game, 1 goal against Forest, 2 goals against Wigan, 2 goals against Tottenham, 4 against Newport, 4 against Wolves, 3 against West Ham. And that is the singular main change in the team during that period of time, is Garnacho coming in on that right side and playing there opposite to Marcus Rashford for most of, if not all of those games, minus one that Rashford was out for Newport, right? That's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. And, a couple of the factors of it are, one, yeah, like you said, he's a bit more two-footed. The other factors, he's just a far more physical player for the Premier League. He's got incredible tools. When you look at the speed of those 3 players, Rashford, Hojlund, and Garnacho, I think they're probably the fastest front 3 in England right now. When you look at it, I mean, Rasmus Hojlund is incredibly quick. Rashford, as we know, and Garnacho is fast. I mean, they are fast, and to have to contend with that. And one of the complaints I think we'd all seen with regards to Antony is, one of the strengths of United is this play in transition. If you look at the goals mostly being scored, they're still mostly being scored in transition. We're not parked outside West Ham's box, crossing it around for an hour. They're still mostly scored in transition, which is fine to me. I don't actually have a complaint about it. It suits the team, but they're mostly quick moves up the field. And you don't have any of them slowing it down and stopping it and going one direction and waiting and waiting and waiting, but really attacking the defense before they can set. And that's why they're getting so many open looks, because they go at them and they go at them and they go at them, and they're not prepared. And it is a huge testament to Garnacho, because he started the season, I think, pretty poor, and has worked and worked and worked and continued, and he has not lost the aggression that I think is necessary to become a successful scorer in the Premier League. I think it requires a level of continuing to go at it despite the challenges you face and what you're going to run into, in the physicality over and over and over again. And he's got the right mental fortitude for it as well, on top of everything else. So really, really impressed with him at this point in time. And I think you could say it solves a big problem, because if you walked into next season with that as your starting front 3, I wouldn't be unhappy. I think you need more players for the front 3, but I wouldn't be unhappy, if you rebuilt the rest of the team behind them.
Let me get to that, because this gives United a bit of a dilemma. To me, with Hojlund, it's not an easy one to fix. So with Rasmus Hojlund, excellent young striker, finding his form, very, very exciting. Some of the things that I love about Hojlund is his variety. Is he can score all different types of goals, score from outside the box. He's got good feet. He's quick. I mean, even his assist for Rashford at Wolves, I thought he took it really well back to goal. Moves his feet well, lays it off, bang goal. If you look at the goal he scores against Wolves, bloody ball across, tap in, right? The goal he scores against West Ham, very different. The goal he scores against Spurs, very different. The goal he scores against Villa, very different. This Champions League goals. So he has a lot of variety to him. He's quick. He's the type of player that doesn't have to be, like Cavani would be a number 9, anywhere in the box. But Hojlund, as we even saw against Galatasaray, if you give him a ball in the halfway line, he gets a run on your defender. He's got the pace to beat him. So he's very, very exciting. Now he becomes the part, okay, United need another striker. If you sign a top striker like Ivan Toney, to me, you're going to set Hojlund back, because Hojlund can't go from starting pretty much every week in his first season, scoring goals, and then being somewhat demoted to second striker. I think United need to learn a little bit about the Martial situation, because when his second season happened, and United brought in Ibrahimovic, changed his number, everything, that caused a problem. So with Hojlund, do you send a top-class striker, in which case it's going to, in my opinion, prohibit his development? Do you send a young striker who's going to accept playing backup to him? Or do you send an experienced striker? I mean, I'm not quite sure what the right thing to do is. Lots of United fans don't want another 33-year-old striker. I'm not sure how you need to solve this problem.
Yeah, I mean, because yeah, for sure, and the truth of it is, there's a little bit of a time crunch as well. We know, you don't want to wait until summer to be able to decide what positions you're targeting, what players you're buying. That's how you get in the kind of trouble we've been in for years, that
Yeah.
we can't make those moves until June, and even start in June and not sign players till July. It is a challenge because you'd really like to see how Rasmus Hojlund can keep this up.
Hmm.
But I think that part of it is that it comes down to a decision of where do they think this team is at and how long until they're competing. Because if you say next year we need to win titles, you probably do have to sign a very good, proven striker like Ivan Toney into the team. You probably do.
Well, let me ask you that, James. How many top clubs? This is a genuine question.
Yeah.
Have two world-class central strikers?
Yeah, very few. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
City
hard.
have Haaland and Alvarez right now.
But
That's
maybe Haaland's
working
not
pretty
world
well.
class yet to say that.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're.
No, I know exactly
I
what
don't
you're
know.
saying.
I
It
don't
is
know
an
what the
odd
answer is.
thing because, usually, yeah, you would be bringing someone like Hoyland in when you're phasing out an older player who is successful in that area. Like you look at Liverpool have replaced Mane and Firmino with the forwards that they've signed to come in, to where now they've got kind of four that they like to use, four main forwards that they would like to use at any given time, and that's pretty normal. I mean, Madrid would move their players around, but you know, uh, it's rare. It is very rare to have two, and so I would agree with you. Having both Hoyland and Ivan Toney to me is doesn't really make sense in the long term. It's kind of like we really need players right now to win things, and we just want to load up on having the best options available. But it is weird. It is a really weird situation because you take the wing. I think on the wings, because they're flexible, you can get away with quite a bit more. You have Rashford and Garnacho on the opposite wings. You bring another winger in, they can swap sides pretty easily. And so you have more redundancy there. There's a lot of games to go around. You can still have three wingers playing 40, 50 games, but you're not going to get that with the striker. You're going to have them, somebody's playing 15, at most, and the other one is playing the rest. And it's like, is Hojlund, I guess the decision is Hojlund good enough that we can say, yeah, we want him to play the 30, 40 games next year. And we want somebody to only play 15. That's the
I think
decision.
United need a striker that can play on the left or play on the right, so that they get
Yeah.
enough games, right? So that you get a player that has some flexibilities, not an out and out number 9 that can give you some variety on the left or right. Because obviously with Haaland, if he gets injured, you're in big trouble, right? But think if you get, I mean, Ivan Toney would be a brilliant player for United. I would love him at United. I'm just not sure how it helps Haaland at this point to have someone starting ahead of him. We're interested to see how the rest of the season goes. INEOS should have their feet under the desk here in about another week or two officially. The rate of change at United has been the speed of light. Lots of things happening, and certainly one of the things to me that's very different is the threshold between where United will let a player go. And it seems to me, I look at someone like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, supposedly injured at the weekend. I have no idea whether he was or not, but Aaron Wan-Bissaka looks to me like a player that United might be considering letting go.
Mm.
I think that he has had some issues with some of the stuff that's been going on at the football club. I think he has, I'll choose my words carefully here, but I don't think he's been thrilled with some of the decisions that have been made behind the scenes. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's a contract issue. When Ten Hag first came in, he was not thrilled, wasn't sold on Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka eventually worked his way into the team. Is a very, very good stand-up one-on-one defender. but there's other areas of his game that he is really lacking in my opinion. I think he loses concentration at times. I think when United's weaknesses on set pieces, they can't afford this. I think that Newcastle goal, where Andy
Yes,
Gordon
yes.
comes over his shoulder, where he's not paying attention. We've seen this a few times. He's not alone in that, to be fair. And I just think United now have a much more ruthless, evaluation process where it's like, look, this you're being judged solely on your football. And I have a feeling that he is someone United will look to move on in the summer.
Yeah, it probably. Obviously, that could all change depending on manager, things like that, in terms of preference of player. As of now, Diogo Dalot is very clearly the main choice for the position and who will likely play most of the season. I think he's improved a lot. I think I had concerns over some things at times, the same sort of factor, losing focus defensively, things like that. I thought against Wolves, there were some things he could have done better, especially off set pieces where he's sort of stuck on the line and not challenging the player in the box. But I thought against West Ham, he was very good. He was
Very,
very
very
good.
well.
It might have been his best game that I've seen this year, in my opinion.
Was it Bowen straight through that he cut back on, and who was it was straight through on goal?
Yeah,
30 yards. It was
and
brilliant.
I didn't expect that. It was a great moment because they were through on goal, and I thought they were going to get a clean shot off. I don't have much confidence in Onana to stop that shot. So it was a very good moment from Diogo Dalot, and a good game in general. He's been improving in the build up. He looks a lot better and more confident playing in this current team and setup. It's a tricky situation, but I think we're going to see a lot of players shifted out, and I think that it's probably easier to complete kind of the whole rebuild aspect of things when your whole rebuild aspect of all of this by just letting some of these players who are kind of in limbo go. Aaron Wan-Bissaka being in that situation where it'd be easy to just let him go and keep the wages. The only question that you have is how expensive is a replacement, and is it going to be someone of better quality? Would you be better off a player who has zero amortization left after this summer, getting him a new contract? And if you think, well, I guess the question is, if you think Diogo Dalot is good enough to be the starter, then you're probably better off re-signing Aaron Wan-Bissaka and not spending the FFP space on new signing costs, millions per year on the fee for a player who has no amortization left, who's essentially paid off after this year. That's kind of the consideration, but I think that's a little bit is he's in one of those situations similar to Rafael Varane, I believe, where it's going to depend what happens this summer with the manager and with all of that, and it's a bit tricky.
I think also Wan-Bissaka, he has a part in this too. Does he want to sign a new contract and sit on the bench as second choice?
Yes.
I don't think Diogo Dalot is a starting right back myself. I think both of them are backup right backs, in my opinion.
Right.
And that is the problem, is that they need a right back. I think also United have a lot of players out on loan, which will help with the FFP if they can sell Brandon Williams. If the number of those young players that they have out on loan, the big decisions to make, obviously, over Jadon Sancho, Mason Greenwood, who scored at the weekend, a big decision to make there. I think there is potentially a lot of revenue that could be generated by player sales. One of the things that is very different, obviously, under INEOS is that there is no more of these huge lucrative contracts being given out, where you could see that they're focusing on high earning players that aren't given enough back that justifies those wages, and you're no longer getting contracts just because United don't want to sign a replacement. This whole evaluation process is completely different. So I think that maybe 2 years ago, Wan-Bissaka would have already been signed on a new contract, not just yet.
Yep.
He's got the same amount of time left on his contract that Erik ten Hag has, and United have to make a decision there. And Ten Hag himself has a decision to make, because let's say United agree keep Ten Hag as the manager. Ten Hag's going to have a very different role at Manchester United than what he had before. So all of a sudden, this autonomy over transfers. Also, some people, some rumors that he's not particularly thrilled about what United will have budget wise this summer. That will have to be determined. But I think both Ten Hag and United have a big decision to make, and I think that decision will definitely come before the end of the season.
Yeah, I do. And I think the only reason why it's continued to appear in limbo at the moment is because the INEOS ratification hasn't, of course, yet occurred. And so this all completely and fully falling under the football purview, nothing can happen. And so you're not even going to see leaks. You're not going to see anything. You're not going to see much happening at all until that is done, which should be very soon. There's this vote today and all of that. But that is essentially the first thing that needs to happen is that, and those are the big decisions they have to make pretty much right away because they're going to determine everything downstream from that, essentially, making the top to the next layer to the next layer to the next layer of what happens from top down, everything below the CEO. That's got to all happen pretty quickly. But yeah, it is. You had the article from a guy who's pretty close to Ten Hag, I think, historically since his tenure here, about concerns over how the transfer backing has worked and how it might work moving forwards. And you could see a little bit, and I have mentioned this being potentially one of the major sticking points, and I think it is on both sides, a little bit of framework set up that could allow for Erik ten Hag to have a bit of a graceful exit, which I think is fair considering the situation if he does leave, and if he does depart, that it is done on a mutual basis in terms of a disagreement over how things are going to move forward under a new regime, and it's not what he signed up for, and that's all well and good. I wouldn't like begrudge him that, and I wouldn't say have it out for blood, like if he ends up leaving, that has to be the sacking and all this crap thrown at him about the whole thing, and that would, from his side, allow him to get be in a better position for future jobs and other positions that are out there and all of that. So I could see that that could be part of the situation that occurs there. But yeah, these are big decisions that have to be made in general for a lot of things, and it's like it is a big snowball effect, whatever they decide,
I
all the
think
way down through so many players.
with Ten Hag, James, in many ways, what's happened this season has negated what happened last season with the credit. So, in my opinion,
Yeah.
what happens between now and the next 2 months will determine whether he keeps his job or not. I mean, that's stating the obvious, but what I mean is, if he goes on a good run and United play good football and they qualify for the Champions League, I think he should keep his job. I think that he has illustrated that once I get my best players back, then United started to look like a football team in the way that they should. Some of the questions we've been asking, has it been injuries that have been the result of United's perform? Has it been tactics? Has it been other aspects that are going on behind the scenes? Do the players still support him? Is he capable of getting Manchester United playing in a certain way? If he qualifies for the Champions League and if he gets United playing well, where they're attractive to watch, where they're competitive in big games. We're not looking at this, top 9 situation where they're beating one team in the top 9. If he really starts to show progress on the field, I would 100% be in favor of keeping him. There's no guarantee that the guy INEOS want to bring in, whoever their guy is, is going to be successful. And so, I think that it's, you look at Chelsea and you have to me, and I don't think any else will make this mistake. I think they're obviously have much more experience in running a sports team, but I think that when you clubs like United and Chelsea, where you have all this convoluted power and you've got these people making decisions, it's really easy to fail. I mean, Pochettino is clearly a very, very good manager, very, very good coach, but you need all the other things behind the scenes working properly too. I think with Ten Hag, I supported him. I have concerns, which I still have, But I think if he can get United in the Champions League, he should keep his job.
Yeah, I would agree with two caveats, which is one, regardless of results, he still was going to have to agree to a new structure.
Yes, of course,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, he's
And
going to have
then,
to want to stay too. Yes.
yeah, and then the second aspect of it that we're not going to know is within that new structure, how do they feel he would be willing to work with the players that he hasn't signed? Because that has been a bit of one of the complaints, is that, a degree of call it favoritism or call it comfort or whatever you'd want to call it. I'm not even saying it as necessarily a criticism. It's understandable, to focus on, certain players a bit more than others. I think part of the injury issue has almost forced the opposite, because it's been mostly all the players he signed that have been out, or a lot of the players that he signed that have been out. Casemiro, Lisandro Martinez, outside of Anthony, who has now effectively been dropped. I mean, after scoring against Newport, he was still not starting. And I thought that was a very positive sign, because Garnacho has really owned that position, like we talked about. And so that's the other aspect of it that is probably not really something we can gauge as fans, because I don't want to rumor monger on it negatively either. But they would have to see that there's a willingness. Then it's not like a begrudging acceptance that I'm not going to do transfers. And then, you're going to have to really get on with the players that we bring in, and you can't piss them off. You can't be like, I don't like that guy, see you later, and not want to deal with them, because that has happened at clubs with certain managers who are a bit tough to deal with, and the manager will always loses their job in that case. And it's not really a factor of player power, it's club power, right? They want to be able to spend money and bring people in and not
Of
have them be
course.
wasted.
But I still think Ten Hag should not have players foisted on him. I still think he should be
Sure,
part of the selection process that
course.
says, I want to sign this guy. Well, I don't care whether you want him or not. You're going to coach. I don't think that should happen. I think that Ten Hag should be part of that process where he has an important say. Because ultimately, it's his job. It's going to depend on if these players aren't successful. And if these players are not coming to the club because of Ten Hag, they have to want to play for him. There has to be,
Yeah.
because ultimately they're still answerable to the manager. And so to me, I think I agree that clearly it's not just a Ten Hag decision. And United have to recruit below the first team in such a way that has nothing to do with Ten Hag. The recruitment at
Yeah.
youth level, all that has nothing to do with Ten Hag. So I think for that, when it comes to the big players in the first team, he should obviously be part of that process. And
Of course, any manager
there
should.
is no top club now where managers have sole control over transfers. So Ten Hag would obviously have to. I think that may be the part where he has some areas of concerns, is how much of a say does he have, and how much weight does his opinion carry when it comes to signing players. I think, as I was saying, this weekend is crucial for United. If they can go and win against Villa, right, and play well, however they get it done, they can go get a win against Villa. I think, and maybe I'm wrong here, I know we've had this moments many times during the season, but I do think that could be really pivotal. I think that is the type of game where if United won, it would give them enormous belief that that United are getting back to their best, with the players coming back, that this is not just a victory
Flash in
where
the pan,
it's not an insignificant victory where it's not really indicative of anything. I think if they can win this weekend, that's the type of win that United would take a lot of confidence from. They have to shore up defensively. Villa are very, very good going forward. They scored 5, of course, at the weekend away to Sheffield United. Martinez is a huge, huge loss. And this is where I do feel a bit sorry for Ten Hag, because that, to me, of all the players you don't want to lose, Lisandro Martinez is the one. The difference between Martinez and the United team and that is massive. Probably, in my opinion, more than any other player. And I don't think he can have anything like Lisandro Martinez in terms of his quality as a footballer, in terms of his organization, in terms of his leadership, in terms of his, the influence on other players, the influence on how United play, how they play it from the back, because he's not just a good defender, he's exceptional at building up play. I mean, the first goal at the weekend, Martinez, Casemiro wins the ball, but the move starts with Martinez, right? And he's just so important. We saw it against Wolves, he gets taken off, United can see 2 goals. He is absolutely pivotal to United. Being out for 8 weeks is really, really cruel luck.
Yeah, it is. I would say, in my opinion, that Lisandro Martinez is United's best player. Like when you look at, obviously, it's hard to compare positions, but I think Lisandro Martinez is the only player where I am sure when he's on and not injured, he's probably the best or in the top 2 or 3 center backs in England. Undoubtedly, he is incredible. And he brings a lot of qualities, like you said, the leadership. I mean, in the game, I even noticed there was a point, I thought Casemiro was maybe one of the negatives again a little bit. I thought he
Maybe
was a bit better. I thought he was okay, but there was a few moments after United scored the first goal up to about halftime. They actually struggled pretty badly against West Ham. West Ham were pretty well controlling the game, creating chances, mostly set pieces, but that's what they do, with Ward-Prowse. I mean, that's pretty normal. And there was a few moments where both Bruno and Lisandro Martinez were telling Casemiro to calm down because he would do a bit of the thing where he gets on the ball and just launches it, which Bruno does himself too many times, of course, but Bruno's kind of taking it backwards, taking it slow. And there was a moment where Lisandro was calming Casemiro down and instructing him. And this Casemiro being pretty much the most senior player on the team, someone with the leadership abilities, because Lisandro Martinez is not old for a footballer to be instructive to anybody and everybody, is something that I think is missing from the other players. Rafael Varane is a good player, but I don't think he's ever been that much of a vocal leader on the pitch, in terms of instructing and pointing, things like that. Harry Maguire has been, sometimes yes, sometimes no. And Bruno Fernandes is a bit different of a player. So yeah, I think Lisandro brings a lot of qualities that you don't get anywhere else. And I think it is no accident when they play better when he is on and worse when he's off. And I would agree, if there was one player I was going to say, I'm going to start my team with, it'd be Lisandro Martinez in this United squad for sure. He's got every quality you kind of adore in a footballer from any generation. Frankly, I think he'd be exceptional.
I think if you look at that Wolves game, free kick, Onana comes, no man's land, and you can almost see Onana PTSD from the first game, right? When United played against Wolves, do I go through this guy? He sort of half-heartedly came, balls over his head, Masanji kicks off the line. Of course, now United play Wolves at the week, Villa at the weekend, were, in my opinion, not just Onana, to be fair, the 2 goals they conceded from set pieces, which Lisandro Martinez really helps United organizationally and other ways, is a big concern, because to me, Lisandro Martinez is a player that is, maybe the most pivotal player for Ten Hag. And yes, I know he's been criticized over Anthony, but I think Onana is his biggest gamble. And I am really, really concerned. But I don't want to pick on him too much because I want him to be successful. But the goals that United concede with him, to me, look like basic fundamental goalkeeping gaps. He's poor on crosses, right? He's, like the third goal that Wolves scores, he's get beat on his near post, right? And we see him conceding goals every week where I'm like, I think you should do better, he really concerns me. And I had a decent game against West Ham at the weekend. I'll give him that. And I really hope that he is successful. But I'll be honest, he does not fill me with confidence. And I think a poor Onana performance against Villa, United lose that game, just saps the confidence all out of the football team.
Yeah, I agree. You really don't want to see that because, goalkeeper mistakes are the types of things where it's like, what do they're almost a bit on an island. There's nobody else involved in it. It's very rare that a player on their own makes a mistake out in the 11 or the 10 rather. That is just like that's it and it's a goal. And players miss shots, attacks all the time, right? It's a volume thing when you're trying to score goals. But with a goalkeeper, I mean, Ten Hag's first season, that second game when David De Gea lets in the shot from long range right under his gloves against Brentford, the collapse was practically inevitable once that occurred. You could see how much it rattled them. They were totally off from that moment on. And then the pass to Eriksson, that was completely ill-advised, results in a second goal, and it was finished. You could tell that game was over. There was nothing they could do to get that confidence back. And sometimes with a keeper, it's like that because you hope to have someone who's not going to, on their own, make mistakes there and give up goals. And it's happened too many times this year. So, yeah, it is worrisome. I am worried, and it's like you just hope there's not going to be another moment that spoils a lot of the good feeling, a lot of the good things that are happening elsewhere. But I would say with the team that we have now, that is my biggest worry too, would be goalkeeper. With the 11 that we expect to turn up to Villa.
The amount of goals he's conceded, United have conceded this season, makes awful reading. And this we've seen so many times where United will be playing well, creating chances, everything's going great, and then some inexplicable shot goes into the back of that and completely deflates. I'm specifically thinking about Champions League, Galatasaray, stuff that you expect your goalkeeper to be able to save, and it completely changes the whole trajectory of the game. It completely changes the momentum. It changes everything. And for the outfield players, I'm starting to notice a bit more of a lack of patience, shall we say. I mean, go back to that Galatasaray goal. Take a look at Bruno Fernandes, what he does when he comes in. And what just because he's upset with Onana. Almost contempt. Like, this is ridiculous. I like him as a human being. I want the lad to succeed. He had a really poor AFCON as well. Yep. And going, a bad goalkeeper can get you the sack. Jim Leighton almost got Alex Ferguson the sack. We had to leave Jim Leighton out of the cup final replay. Leighton never recovered. His relationship with Ferguson never recovered. United win the cup final replay, and they keeps Ferguson in the job. Les Sealy comes in, and maybe history would have been completely different if he stands by his goalkeeper. To me, if I'm Ten Hag, this is a massive risk, and I think that Onana's form is going to be pivotal on whether Ten Hag is still United manager come the summer. Because if Onana's form is, you can get away with bad form with David De Gea because you didn't sign him.
Yeah.
But if your replacement is really poor, then I think, those are types of decisions that Ten Hag really couldn't complain about, James, if he lost his job. Like I say, I don't want to see him lose his job. I don't want to see anyone lose their job. But if that happened, it would be very difficult for him to, be upset. And I mean, this is a big, big issue.
Yeah, and you signed another goalkeeper, so you don't really have, there's another goalkeeper. He's been signed. Well, whoever did, you got one. We know he has enough control that he approved the signing, right? We do know that. There's another goalkeeper there. And
the other thing is with that, Jim,
could he be worse though than the mistakes that Onana has made?
And that's the thing. Like, other outfield players get dropped when they don't play well.
Yeah, why goalkeepers are so untouchable?
So I understand you want consistency between the sticks. I get that.
Yeah.
But if your goalkeeper is dropping balls in the net, what benefit is that consistency to you? I understand you have confidence in him, but so maybe taking him out of the line of fire for a while, saying, you know what, he's injured.
Yeah.
He picked up a knock. Leave him out for a month. Take.
Yeah, when's he going to catch one of those famous Carrington illnesses that so many?
Yeah, and so and so I feel that that's a big decision.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I really hope that he is. I think when you look at the goals United are conceding, a significant number of them are because of he doesn't come off his line. Even when someone's straight through, I think about the Forest goal away or at home. Awaniwi, I think it was, goes straight through, tips it
Yeah.
over. Cardi goes straight through. He's still kind of on the edge of the 6-yard box. Dunk, dips it over him after he goes to ground too easy. And you see this a lot. And like, these are basic goalkeeping fundamentals. And he's starting to get targeted because Villa targeted him, in the home game. And these goals, I don't know. If you've got to score 4 goals to win a game,
Yeah, we can't keep that up. It's been nice, but
anyway.
who
So
should do it?
yeah. A couple other odds and ends, some transfer stuff. Before the window closed, Isaac Aronson left the football club, of course. Lots of fans were upset over that. He was a young player with potential, but it was either sell him now or lose him in the summer for basically a compensation fee. And again, these are decisions United are saying, okay, we're not going to mess with this. There's because in the past they just would have kept him. We'd have left in summer. Now they're being much more ruthless. Plus, I understand we like young talents. We want them all to progress, but most of them won't make it. And if young Aronson wasn't getting into United's first team this season when the whole squad was depleted with injuries, you wonder, how good is it?
Well, and that's really what it comes down to. That's why he left. They offered him a contract.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to accept it.
Yeah, he
He
wants to
wanted to
play.
leave. It's going to happen with the youth players. It's going to happen with more. It's not the first. It's not the last. It's going to happen a lot. Obviously, one can debate, should he have gotten in the team during this period of time? I think he expected to get some time this year. He hasn't got it. I think that given that is where we were at, it's the right outcome for all parties then at that point in time.
I don't know if they negotiated a sell-on clause running with him or a buyback
A
clause. I don't
sell-on,
know.
but no buyback, as far as I understand. A sell-on, but no buyback.
So, great move for him. Goes to Germany, goes to Werder Bremen, decent club. A football club where he's going to play. It's a good move for him. Some of the other things that happened, Palestri went out on loan to Granada, which I don't ever expect Facundo Palestri to be a Manchester United player. I haven't believed that for a while. I think that he's a decent young player, but I don't think he has ever. I mean, I go back to that Galatasaray game. He should have scored, right? Away at Galatasaray, he should have scored. Away at Bayern Munich, I know he's playing for Uruguay, but he's never. I know people might disagree, but he's never really impressed me in United shirt. Where I'm like, I want to see more of this kid.
Yeah, I like him, and for a long time, I felt like he never got the chance. But I think he's had enough minutes for me personally where you can tell, is he ever going to be up to the United level? Probably not. I don't see it there. I think that he's not a bad footballer, and I think he will have a future. I mean, playing for the Uruguay national team is not nothing. I think he will make it somewhere. I think that the lack of good loans definitely did not help his career development because he looks a few years off where he should be now by his age compared to, like, there's been no progression since when he was purchased originally. But those are that's so I think it's very likely that following this, he will be sold in some capacity or another. But you never know. Maybe he has a fantastic loan in Spain and the development shoots through the moon and comes back a different player. But I would be a little bit surprised. I think it's a good move either way. And in summer, they'll make a further decision.
Donny van de Beek, poor Donny. So he's been left out of Eintracht Frankfurt's Europa Conference League squad. First 2 games gets dragged off after 60 minutes. The game at the weekend, he's on the bench, doesn't play at all.
And not registered for their Conference League campaign.
Yeah, then they left him out of the Europa Conference League squad. I can't understand this. I mean, at Ajax, okay, fine if you just play well in the Eredivisie, but this kid was exceptional in the Champions League. And it is one of the most puzzling things because he was poor at Everton on loan, right? And you're going, if you were to judge Van de Beek on the last 3-4 years of his career, he wouldn't have a professional contract. Why has this decline happened? It's sad to me.
Well, yeah, and I think that there's 2 factors in it, and one of the major factors that's a little bit less obvious is that he plays a non-existent position in football, which is this sort of almost like
What
this.
position would you play?
Who knows? There is none. It's not a position. You know, the most
False
similar thing
footballer?
we've seen to it, yeah, false football. It exactly is that. The most similar thing we've seen to his position is McTominay crashing the box. And we've seen how bad that is for the rest of the team when that is like McTominay's only job, except McTominay's very good at it. And he's big and he's tall and he's physical and he would win off set pieces and he gets these goals and he wins these headers. But this like extra midfielder crashing the box, late arrivals, but doesn't really offer anything else. It is not a position that works in football. I don't see any team playing that except when we did out of desperation with McTominay. And even then, he's just better at it than Donny van de Beek. So that's kind of how I see it. It's a little bit what he did at Ajax. I think people misprofiled him quite a lot, thinking he was like, people used to call him a six. He has not a single skill set for that position, not a single ability that seems to match up with that. He is pretty much only capable of playing sideways one-touch passes, which is kind of what you want around the box. But, you know, I don't see a position for him. He's not big enough to be a striker. He's not fast enough to be a striker. He's not physical enough to play deeper in the midfield. So he's just this weird kind of floating extra man that is just not something that I think will ever nail down a place in modern football right now.
I think that if he has a poor loan spell at Frankfurt, United should look for a way to cancel his contract and let him go back to Holland or something, because I genuinely feel for him. I can't understand how he's declined this much. Another one, Jadon Sancho. So Sancho has 2 assists in 3 games with Dortmund, and he had 12 goals and 6 assists in 82 games at United. He's obviously happier out there. I think we would agree that it's a different standard playing it. You know, Bundesliga is a very, very good standard. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying that based on the comments of managers that have worked there, like Ranić and others, that have said, you know, the like Burnley would never have been at the you know when Burnley were close to the bottom at the Premier League, we said it would never be the case in the Bundesliga. Sebastian Kehl at Dortmund has said there's really zero prospect of them signing him because of what he would cost. Do you think, one, there's any way back for Sancho at United, and two, what should they do with him this summer?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's none with Erik ten Hag here, right? I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, you never say never with those things, but it's pretty clear. I mean, even now Ten Hag is saying, you know, when people ask him about the Rashford thing, you know, he said, you know, Sancho was different and this was internal and all of that. So clearly it's not a situation where I think Erik ten Hag has any intention of ever working with him as a player again. And I don't think that's going to change. And I don't think it should in that sense. If a manager is really in that position, I don't think anybody should come in and change their mind about it or push it. But
I also think for Jadon, you know, if you come back to Manchester United, where do you play? Because his best season is on the left, so he's not going to start ahead of Rashford. And if Rashford doesn't play on the left, Garnacho will play on the left. Does he play down the middle and you know, in a false, you know, in the Bruno Fernandes position? Does he play on the right where it looks like Garnacho's got that lined up? You know, Jadon Sancho needs to be starting football games, so I'm not quite sure how he comes back to Manchester United and is a starting player every week. Again, sad because a player with immense talent, and I was really excited when United signed him. I loved him at Dortmund, but he's going to have to find a solution. And it's going to be difficult for United because they're going to they risk being embarrassed in this situation, because if they sell Sancho on the cheap and maybe he goes to a Spurs or something like that and he turns out to be exceptional, right? United are going to once again get heavily criticized over selling him too cheap. You know, he's only 23. He's still this whole career pretty much ahead of him. But even if he has a really good 6 months for Dortmund, it's still going to be hard to get big money for him this summer. But a
lot of questions that we've asked here that don't have clear answers, you know.
Well, and I think all of this is going to be integral to how United recruit over the summer. Another one, Christian Eriksen. We're almost done here. Ericsson being linked with a move to Turkey before the week. Their transfer window closes at the end of the week, I believe. And there's been some talk that United would loan him with an option to buy in the summer. I think he's only started 2 games since November.
And he's not coming on as a substitute either.
Yeah, and I don't think Christian Eriksen will be a Manchester United player beyond the summer, no matter what.
Yeah,
I think he will be someone that will look to move on. What do you think will happen with Eriksen?
I think he'll probably stay just because Ten Hag won't want to weaken anymore. Just in case, I mean, Casemiro. There's still not that many players in the midfield. Amrabat has been, it's probably a bit of a non-factor at this point in time for United. It's not been a successful loan for him. And so I think you'll probably want him just for them to make up the numbers for the rest of the team. But I think he'll go in summer, and I'd be surprised if he left now, even though there might be interest. I think for him too, at his age, I'm not sure he wants to go to Turkey for 6 months, and unsettle things. Maybe go to summer and be able to make a bit more of a long-term decision about the rest of his career, because his next move is probably closer to his last major club at best. And so, I would be surprised if he departs, but it could happen. I mean, he hasn't been playing, but
yeah, if Brentford stay up, it wouldn't surprise me to see him going to somewhere like a Brentford next season. Cup price deal, United get those wages off the books. The other one, of course, lastly before we go, is Marcus Rashford. What will happen with Marcus Rashford this summer? Will United keep him? Will they not? Obviously, there's the potential that if they were to sell him, it would be an enormous FFP boost. There's certainly people very close to Marcus Rashford who feel that Manchester United are trying to force him out. That's not something he particularly he wants. Marcus wants to stay at the football club. So I don't know if that is the case. I'm sure United would say otherwise. He feels like, from what I've been told, his role in the team changed to accommodate a number 9 from what it was last season, although that hasn't really been mentioned much in the media. But clearly, United need to find a way, in my opinion, to resolve the situation where Marcus feels an important part of the squad, where he feels valued, and where he feels integral to what Manchester United are doing. That's something that INEOS are going to have to fix quite quickly, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't think he will go. One, because there are very few teams that can afford Marcus Rashford. And 2, because if you are trying to build a winning team, you do not sell your best, 27-year-old players. You just don't. I understand the FFP argument and all of that, but who are you going to get in that year's for sure better in the Premier League? Very few players who have that kind of potential. You have a lot more benefit, and he just signed a contract, right? You have a lot more benefit in trying to make things work for the next and get him going over the next year than you do trying to sell him and replace him now. You still have 3 years after that if you have to. I don't think that his value is at the highest this going into the summer, off the back of the season. I don't think there's many United players that are. I think it's a little overblown, some of the talk from PSG's perspective in terms of their interest in Rashford. They have been in the past. I don't think they're presently looking at him. I think that most everybody on all sides, including Marcus Rashford, want him to stay. He just signed a new deal. I think it's a little more positive. I think his role in the last few games has gone a bit back to how it was before in this front three. He's not sitting on a touchline. He's narrow, coming into the middle a lot more, doing the things he used to do. He scored his goal, of course, against Wolves right from the center, top of the box. And I think that I personally think he's going to be somebody that's integral to the next phase of the team as well.
I also think, James, we kind of underestimate the impact that a pressure has on a human being.
Yeah.
And Marcus is under enormous pressure. He's a homegrown player. Homegrown players are great, when things are going well, but when things aren't going well, they're usually the first ones singled out. I think people underestimate what type of pressure he is. You get idiots saying, well, he's on this much money a week. That does not stop you from being human. there's nothing, there's no check that you can write. Or it's, what, if I was making this much money, I'm going to get up every day, I'm going to have no pressure. It's just going to be, hedonism all day. I'm going to be, having the no stress. I'm going to sleep like a baby. It's just going to be, everyday Shangri-La. Like, it's just not, that's not how life is. This assumption that you can reach a certain, wealth threshold where all the, stresses of life just evaporate and everything's Disneyland every day. That's just not how people, it's not real life. I think we have to be careful sometimes with the type of pressure that we put on players. I mean, I don't know what the threshold is. We criticize players for poor performances, but it was clear that people went too far with Harry Maguire. It's clear there is a line, and that, I think that type of pressure is, it's not healthy for and every human being reacts differently. So I really want to see him stay. I want to see him thrive at United. And I want to see the Marcus Rashford that when he is on form and he wants it, he's unplayable. So hopefully that happens. All right, folks, that'll do for this week. I'll be back later on in the week with another one of my We Are United podcast. Please tune in for that. Thanks to all of you for your downloads, likes, retweets, follows, subscriptions, all that. Very, very much appreciated. Don't forget, support our fanzines, Red News, and United We Stand. Very, very important that you support them. They need the fan support. Thank you to my friend here, James, and thanks to all of you.
Of course.
Cheers, bye.
See ya.